Today our topic is what is meant by expense. We will study in this lecture what is the difference between direct expense and operating expense. So we start with the definition of expense. Expense is the amount spent on generating revenues in business or in the operation of business activities. Expense include all expired costs which are deductible from revenues. Expired cost means that we have taken the services or rendered the services, and the expense will reduce our profit. Expense is calculated by the amount of decrease in asset or increase in liabilities. Whenever there is a expense in our business, it will reduce our asset. Like we want to pay a rent, definitely we have to pay rent in the form of cash, so cash is a asset, it will reduce. On the other hand, if we do not pay the rent expense at the spot, it will create our liability. Our liability will increase, that would be account payable. Now we see the definition of direct expense. We can classify direct expenses into two categories. First, we will look in trading business what is meant by direct expense, and then in manufacturing business what are the direct expenses. So in trading business, direct expenses are those which are spent to bring the purchase of inventory in trading business. Examples include wages, transportation in, carriage inward, loading and unloading. These are the examples. If we purchase inventory from local market or inside the country, then these expenses are incurred. On the other hand, if we purchase the goods or inventory or merchandise from out of country, from a foreign country, then we have to pay certain types of taxes and tariff. So all the taxes and tariffs paid on the purchase of goods are also called direct expenses. Those are like octroi duty, import duty, and custom duty. The second category where direct expenses incurred in manufacturing business. If it is a manufacturing business, then we can say all expenses spent on the production of goods and commodities in business are called direct expenses. What are those direct expenses in manufacturing business? All factory expenses means if we want to produce goods, definitely we need a factory or plant. So all the expenses of plant and factory except direct labor and direct material, those will be called direct expenses. For example, these expenses may be power, heat and light, factory rent, factory insurance, factory fuel, factory duty, motive power, coal, indirect material and indirect labor. These direct expenses in manufacturing business have other names. What are those names? Like manufacturing expenses, like factory overhead expenses, like factory burden. Now we see operation expenses, or the other name is indirect expenses. Operation expenses are those expenses which are spent on the daily routine or operational activities of the trading business. Here we will also first study the operation expenses of trading business. Then we will study the operation expenses of manufacturing business. So examples of operating expenses in trading business are many, like rent expense, insurance expense, free samples, repairs, pension, commission, interest expenses, depreciation, whitewash, and many more expenses. These expenses are mostly given on the debit side of trial balance in our question. Now we see the operating expenses in manufacturing business. First we see the definition. Amount spent on sale, marketing activities of manufacturing business are called operating expenses. The examples of these expenses include selling expenses, admin expenses, marketing expenses. As we have earlier studied that the production expenses in manufacturing business are called direct. When product has been produced, then that product would be sold in the market. So for sale, we have to make marketing, and similarly for sale purpose, we need certain kinds of admin expenses and selling expenses. So all these are the examples of operating expenses. Now we see how we adjust these trading and in trading profit and loss account, these kinds of direct expenses and operating expenses. As you know, we have to prepare income statement or trading profit and loss account, and both types of expenses, direct expenses and operating expenses, are recorded in these documents. So first we record the direct expenses. Expenses are recorded with the purchase. As you can see, wages, carriage and cartage, like transportation and whatever the expenses has been incurred for the purchase of goods from local market, or the expenses which has been incurred from buying the international market, and other taxes and tariff will be included in purchase. After recording the direct expenses, we will find gross profit. Then we will brought the gross profit forward, and in gross profit we will add other incomes. After adding other incomes, then we will deduct all operating expenses. After deducting all operating expenses, that would be a profit of the